Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here this morning. Obviously, I am deeply brokenhearted about the news that we all learned yesterday. I'm saddened and concerned about the impact that that news may have on this institution. I'm saddened and concerned about the impact that this news may have on the people of the 9th District. And I'm also saddened and concerned about the impact that I know this will have on my friend and colleague, Curren Price. I think it's important that we say right at the outset of all of this that the presumption of innocence is not just a handy catchphrase. It is a bedrock principle of the United States of America and our Constitution, and it will be a bedrock principle of how we proceed going forward as a council as well in light of this news. The news came as a shock, needless to say. I know someone will ask whether I had any advance notice. Believe me, you knew about it before I did, and I was stunned, and of course had to get busy to figure out what should be the next steps. So I wanted to go over that a little bit with you, so you all know what what my intention and plan is moving forward, at least today. Councilmember Price wrote to me last night and indicated that he was resigning as the council president pro tem, and that he wished to withdraw from all of his committee assignments. I responded to that letter by, in fact, withdrawing him. So he is, as of today, no longer a member of any city council committee. And we have a vacancy at the position of council president pro tem. Today, first of all, today I will be appointing Councilmember Bob Blumenfield to be the assistant president pro tem of the council. I have the authority to appoint the assistant pro tem. I do not have the authority to appoint a council president pro tem. That needs to be done by an election of the members of the council. So I will be proposing that the council elect Councilmember Marquise Harris Dawson as the new council member, as the new council president pro tem, and I will be appointing Councilmember Bob Blumenfield as the assistant president pro tem. So the three of us will be the new leadership team for the city council if the council, in fact, votes to select Councilmember Harris Dawson as the pro tem. With regard to Councilmember Price's current position, today I will be filing a motion to suspend him from the council. That does not mean that suspension is a foregone conclusion. This will not be a process that will be rushed through as has happened in the past, because it is important that the council have an opportunity to discuss and debate all of the issues surrounding this. This is not something that I care to do unilaterally or would do unilaterally. This is something that needs to be discussed so that we have the opportunity to consider all of the issues involved. Councilmember Price's response to these charges, the impact on the people of the 9th District if he were suspended. What do we do next in terms of representation for the 9th District if that were to happen? There's many issues that are involved in this that really should be aired in public, discussed in public by the members of the council with the input of all of the people who are impacted by it. So that will be the way we will proceed. I'll introduce the motion today. That motion will be referred to the Rules Committee. There is a current Rules Committee scheduled for a week from Friday. I have not yet made the decision whether we will accelerate that and set a special Rules Committee. We'll be discussing and considering that today. At the same time, Councilmember Harris Dawson will be introducing a motion that I'll be seconding to initiate the process for community input from the 9th District. Because in the past, when there has been actions taken surrounding suspension, the people of the district have voiced their concerns about being left without representation. So I want to make sure that this is a community-driven process and not a council president-driven process. I want to make sure that as we move forward, we have the greatest degree of input that we can from the people of the 9th District about what they would like to see happen. So that will be how we'll proceed with that motion. That will be to begin that process. It was a discussion, frankly, that many of us had at the time of the suspension of Councilmember Ridley Thomas, but this will be a robust process that engages the public. So it's those two motions that will be introduced today, as well as the motion to initiate the process for the election of the Council President Pro Tem, and that's what's going to be on our agenda today. So with that, I have some comments in Spanish, but I can wait until after questions, if that's okay. Okay.
I have a question for you, sir.
Sure.
Certainly a lot of people at home will be watching this and seeing this, and their question is going to be, who's next?
Well, look, there's no getting around the fact that this city council has been rocked by a number of scandals over the course of recent years. That is undeniably true, and it is palpably felt by me, by the members of the council, and certainly by the members of the public. But I think it's, also important to look at each of these cases as things that stand on their own. And again, I don't know what whether these charges against Councilmember Price have merit or not. The judicial process will bear that out. But I do know that we, first of all, have laws in place to prevent things like this happening. If someone violates those laws, it's not an indictment of the institution or of the laws. It is a failure of that person to comply with the laws. That being said, you can bet that our efforts that we've been making since I've been council president to identify new reforms, charter reforms, new ways that we can ensure a higher standard of ethics and that we can identify and eliminate corruption will continue unabated. And in fact, this just gives us that much more incentive to accelerate and redouble those efforts even more.
How long is this initial suspension that would be not today?
I couldn't hear you.
How long is the initial suspension that you're proposing today? How long would that be? Temporary? How long is it going to be?
So it's an excellent question, and it's one of those issues that has to be discussed and debated by the council. What typically happens is, I shouldn't say typically, it's not like this has happened once, I think, in history before this, but when it happens, the suspension will be in place until there's a further action by the council, unless the council otherwise so indicates. Because the thing for everybody to keep in mind is that when charges are filed, we do not have the authority to remove a duly elected council member from their office. They've been elected, they remain in office, they are innocent until proven guilty, they cannot be removed. Suspension is an optional response that the council may choose to impose or not. If we move forward with a suspension, Councilmember Price would remain the council member for the 9th District, but he would not be able to exercise the powers of that office. So that can be, presumably, conditioned for a period of time, whatever, that will be discussed. I will say this, it can only last for so long as any charges are pending. So if there was a resolution of the charges, that would dispense with the suspension.
But to Clemac's point here earlier, what would you say to the person who has lost complete confidence in the Los Angeles City Council?
It's one of the things that I am deeply saddened about, because every time there is a new scandal, I recognize that there are going to be people who are going to lose confidence, not just in this institution, but in government as a whole. And all of those in government have to fully realize that and realize that as confidence is lost, so is the integrity of democracy and people's confidence in democracy. So those of us who are given the privilege to do this work, those of us who are elected to serve the people, have to embrace the fact that it is our personal burden to regain the confidence of people in the electoral process. And we just have to all take this personally as a personal commitment and obligation to be beyond reproach when it comes to any issues of ethics, of how we comport ourselves in this office. We have to merit the people's respect.
Council
Curren Price
President, you say it's
resigned.
not a failure of the institution, and yet there's been indictment after indictment after indictment of members of the institution. And in 2019, the LA Times actually reported on these ethics concerns involving Councilman Curren Price. For instance, the failures of Form 700, the failures of disclosure of the council. And there's been nothing done about that. So how is it not a failure of the institution?
Well, in the particular circumstance that you're describing about the Form 900, Form 700 rather, there's no action for the council to have taken in response to that. We have the Ethics Commission that was fully equipped to be able to do whatever enforcement it deemed necessary, independently of the council. And if there are failures to disclose certain things, then that would be up to Mr. Price to remedy, and it would be up to the Ethics Commission to provide sanction to.
Do you today think that council member Curren Price should be suspended? Have you made a decision?
So I guess I don't. Personally, I think that it's important that we move forward with the suspension process. It's the reason that I'm introducing this motion today. And I think that we need to move forward with that because it is vitally important to send the message to the public that the council separates itself from these charges and allegations. And so I think for that reason, it's important that we move forward. But I also am very mindful of the fact that such a decision has real world consequences. And we have to anticipate as best we can those real world consequences to how the council is governed and how the 9th District is represented. And I just don't want this to be a precipitous process where we're not considering those real world consequences.
But if that's the case, that sounds to me like you have not decided yet whether you think he should be suspended. Am I accurate?
Just like with anything else, I vote based on the actual discussion and debate of the council. So I'm authoring the motion. So obviously I am personally initiating this process, which should say something, but I am not going to get in front of the council's opportunity to discuss and debate this. I think that we need to move forward with the suspension process.
Council President, we talk about the public's trust.
Hold on.
I ask this because when Weezar was charged, he was arrested, your council, and you voted with them. You voted to suspend him before he even entered a plea, right? With Ridley Thomas, you voted within a week to suspend him. Now you're not saying this is a motion to suspend, you're saying it's a motion to initiate the process of suspension, which sounds to me like you are having different thoughts about how this should be handled. Are you having different thoughts?
I have different thoughts about how the process should be handled. Because in the case of Mr. Ridley Thomas, there was a widespread perception that the council was acting precipitously in a way that didn't anticipate the consequences of what our decisions were. And for several months after that, we had to try to figure out how to remedy some of those issues. I want to do it in a way that we think about those things a little bit in advance. Also, I have to say, Mr. Price should have the opportunity to be able to have his say on this as well. And if we truly believe that people are innocent until they're proven guilty, if there's a presumption of innocence, then we should at least hear from him and hear what he has to say.
Council President,
Yes.
we talk about the public losing trust with council members, but are council members at this point in time losing trust with each other?
I hope that that's not the case. Look, I can't candy coat this. This is very hard. This is personally very hard to go through these experiences and see people that you've known for many years facing criminal charges. Yes, it's very difficult for council members to go through this. At the same time, I could not be more pleased with how this particular council has reacted to a whole series of exceptionally difficult circumstances. And this particular council, with 5 brand new members, has really uplifted the institution, I think, and taken on their personal sense of obligation and responsibility, their personal commitment to working on behalf of this committee. Sorry, it's been a long night. They've been working on behalf of this city, and they've been really demonstrating their commitment to turning a page and to creating the new city council. And I'm very proud of my current members for doing that.
Council President, what's your message to the people of the 9th District? And is there a caretaker that you would like to see appointed? Is there someone in mind that you already have that you think would do a good job?
Let me unpack that a little bit. The caretaker is a caretaker decision is premature until there is a suspension. Once there's a suspension, I would immediately appoint a caretaker, and then just to ensure that the work of the office is continuing to be done and that people are continuing to be served. I don't have anyone in mind yet for that position, but that's part of the process that we're initiating today, to talk to the district about what they would like to see happening. One option that the people of the district may express to us, and that I would certainly be interested in, if that's consistent with what we hear, is the possibility of appointing a temporary voting member. That obviously is a deeply political process that the community will have to have significant weigh-in about as to who that person might be that would best represent them as a temporary voting member. And
On that, or how would that decision be made?
that's a decision that would be made by the full council, but the reason that we're initiating this process today is to make sure that the council's vote is fully informed by the people of the 9th District.
Two things. What happens to Councilman Price's salary now, and when he is suspended? And 2, one of his charges is embezzlement of government funds. Are you doing an audit? What are you doing to make sure that there's not more money missing, that other council members haven't done the same thing?
So it's a good question, and first of all, with regard to, look, I read these charges late last night. What I know is what you know about them. But today, we will begin the process of reviewing the case files that were cited in those charging documents. There's two categories of charges here. One involves the conflict of interest, the alleged conflict of interest around real estate. We're going to be looking at all of those to see whether there are any reasons for concern about those real estate projects themselves. Have no way of knowing until we go back and review the case files and see whether there was anything to be concerned about there, other than the council members' potential conflict of interest. You know, whether.
The LA Times reported on potential conflict of interest, what, 2019? You know, how did you not check back then?
Yeah, I don't have an answer to that. Yes.
Yeah, so on that, I think, you know, a lot of these conflict of interest issues have always been known since when it was reported. I was wondering what your feeling was about all those conflict of interest issues and how you felt about them before these officers charges.
How I felt about them.
Having a colleague who had the conflict of interest, which you don't have.
You know, this can run the gamut, and I just don't. I haven't looked at these particular case files that were reported in the charging documents enough to know whether there is a reason to be concerned about whether those projects were actually influenced inappropriately, or whether this was, some sort of a technical problem or an oversight. It can run, these sorts of charges can run the gamut of blameworthiness, I guess. And I don't have a deep enough knowledge of the underlying facts to be able to say where this falls on that spectrum. But very soon, by the end of this day, I certainly will.
And what happens to the salary now and if you get suspended?
So you will recall that there was an effort by the previous controller to cut off the salary of Mr. Ridley Thomas when he was suspended. That, if I believe, and I think that the city attorney actually weighed in on this, that was not within the authority of the controller to do, because until someone is removed from office, they are technically still serving, even if they're suspended, they are still technically serving as the elected council member of the district. So if I'm correct about that legal analysis, then his salary would continue until he were removed from office.
So this would follow.
I will, 1 second. I'll try.
So this would follow essentially the same pattern we saw with former Councilmember Mark Ridley Thomas, where he was suspended without pay, and then there was an effort to restore pay, which was successful, and that was, I think, based partly on the city attorney's decision.
Yes. So to be clear, in the previous case, the council did not suspend him without pay. The council voted to suspend him. That's the authority that we have, is to suspend him. The controller made a unilateral decision within the office of the controller to stop issuing paychecks. And the city attorney felt that that was not within the authority. Let me not say that definitively on behalf of the city attorney. It appeared to me that that was not within the authority of the controller, and if I'm remembering this correctly, the city attorney verified that that was the case.
The council did step in and covered it, that had a vote to restore pay, whether or not that was symbolic, it resulted in him getting a paycheck.
That's right. That's right. So that came after the fact. But that was not our decision in the first place to do, because it's not within our authority to do. Council has limited authority in these areas pursuant to the charter, because the charter presumes that when someone is elected to office, that they are the representative of the people, and that shouldn't be lightly changed just by the whims of the council. So let me...
Spanish, would you conclude the exposition that you were doing in regard to the reviewing of the two charges? You just mentioned number one, the conflict of interest. Which one is the second?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. And then, yes, I didn't finish because I didn't finish the answer. The other part was the charges of embezzlement, which related to, apparently, to the benefits package, the health care benefits specifically, that Councilmember Price and his wife, Dell, received. And this was this fairly unique and unusual circumstance where the allegation is that at the time that those benefits were being received, that they were not actually married. So, that's not the sort of thing that gives rise to a suspicion that there might be other situations like that. That's a pretty unusual sort of situation, and so anyway, that's the other category.
But if he could enroll someone, I imagine there's HR that has to do the enrolling. How does that get past someone?
Well, I don't think anybody in the personnel department goes to verify the legality of someone's apparent marriage. You know, that's not within the scope of the work of the personnel department. Okay. I spoke with him very briefly, just about the time a few minutes after a reporter approached me about this, and it's when I first learned of it. And he called me a short time later, just to indicate that that he had heard about this. All he knew at the time was that he'd received this letter from the district attorney. He hadn't seen the charging documents at that time, nor obviously had I. And he just indicated that he was going to take the time to address this, and I said yes, of course. And so I don't expect him to be in council certainly today or soon. But I don't know specifically what his plans are. That's a decision he's going to have to make. I think he knows better than anybody what the merits of these charges are or are not. He's going to have his opportunity to defend himself, and you know, if he feels that it's in his interests to do that, and in the council's interest, and in the interest of his constituents, then he should make that decision. My job is to make sure that whether or not he does, that we continue to protect the interests of the institution and protect the interests of the people that live in the 9th District. And we're going to continue to do that. I'm going to do my best to try some Spanish now. And I apologize in advance, but I'm going to do my best. Hoy presentaré una moción para iniciar el proceso de suspensión del concejal Price de sus funciones en el Consejo. Este proceso le dará al Consejo suficiente tiempo para considerar la naturaleza de los cargos que se han presentado y los impactos de la suspensión en los residentes del 9º Distrito. Al mismo tiempo, comenzaremos un proceso de acercamiento a la comunitario para escuchar qué curso de acción creen que sería más apropiado para garantizar que no se vean perjudicados por una posible vacante de este puesto en el Consejo y que continúen recibiendo los servicios de su oficina del Consejo. Me entristece profundamente enterarme de estos cargos, pero confío en que el proceso legal hará justicia. A medida que el proceso judicial sigue su curso, el Consejo continuará dirigiendo los asuntos de los ciudadanos de Los Ángeles. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate your being with us.
Is there a formal process where you're going to look at those HHH projects and whether or not, like, what is the process by which you're going to analyze these potential conflicts and whether there were other improprieties?
So I'm going to start by looking at them personally myself, reviewing the council file, reviewing the votes on the council file, and as I did in a previous circumstance when there were real estate projects brought into question during the Councilmember Weezar circumstance. If necessary, I will bring a motion to have a complete review be done to see whether there are any impacts, adverse impacts by those conflicts, and anything that we need to be concerned about. I don't know that yet. There's a fundamental difference here, which is, yes, you're right, there was reporting about this, but in the case of Councilmember Weezar, we had, you know, multiple sworn declarations. We had, you know, reports by the FBI and other things that really delineated the underlying facts of these charges, which we do not have yet in this case. So, but yes, I will personally undertake that effort today. Okay, thank you, everybody.